What's up, ladies? Hello, ladies and gents, and Cyberman coming back to you with another game review video, and this time we're on to God of War 2. So, a little bit of a run back. I played God of War 1 back when PS2 was still a thing, and God of War 2 was coming. My intention was to play it, but then my PS2 broke. And I was just like, do I even want to buy another one? Because they already had a different model. And I was just like, I was already on to like PC at the time for a while. I had moved to that. So I just didn't feel like it. And then the PS3 comes out and it wasn't backwards compatible. So I definitely wasn't like, well, I'm going to play God of War 2. And I was just like, fuck it. Because even though 1 was an excellent game, I wasn't that big of a fan where I felt like I was missing out. And then here we are now, 20 plus years later, and I finally played 2. So, God of War 2 picks up not too long after the first one. You're, of course, battling the gods again, and trying to, take them out. At least the ones that you can. I mean, basically after if you beat 1, please make sure for those listening that you do play 1 before you play 2. Whereas 1 was a lot more surprising, 2 was a lot more, I wouldn't say disappointing, it's just everything was kind of there. There wasn't really anything in here that, I mean, outside of the flying, which I thought was fun, there really wasn't anything into that grabbed me like 1 did. It was just, it was just a sequel. It was an entertaining, fun sequel. And there wasn't anything I didn't like about it, but I just felt it was a solid sequel. Gameplay was a 9 out of 10. There were some parts that were difficult, like any game, like little hard spots. But the combos and stuff that you normally do were great. The story I felt wasn't as up to par with 1, so I give that like an 8 out of 10. The atmosphere, the audio, it was cool. They went together very well hand in hand. So I give that a 9 out of 10. The visuals and the art direction, 10 out of 10. That was excellent. I really enjoyed that. It was very... It took the elements of what made 1 great and it amped it up a little bit. So I did enjoy that. The performance... There was a couple parts in the game that did lag a little bit. Not too much. And mind you, people are like, well, what were you playing on? It's like, I was playing on a fucking PS5, okay? So, it did lag a little bit. It wasn't every single time, but, there was parts where it could get a little choppy. And it was more than once. So, I give that an 8 out of 10. It doesn't mean the game's not good. It was just... something I noticed. The innovation, the design of the game was a 10. I felt they did very well with that and how everything was portrayed. And when you go to different parts in the second one, like they really... they made it the scenery and the areas, they made it was fun. It wasn't like rehashing the same thing. I mean, you do have the main character do some of the stuff he had done before, like climbing and being on walls and stuff, and like doing like what he's doing right here, going across the vine. But it still was, there were still parts of it that were original and felt like an improvement over the first one. The replay value. I don't intend to play this game again. I felt like I did what I wanted to do. I leveled up the character to the ability I wanted to do. So for me, I I don't feel like maxing out all the abilities and stuff. However, for those who are huge God of War fans or love this game, absolutely there is a good amount of replay value, and I would give it an 8 out of 10 for that. There's enough things that you can miss in this game that you could come back and keep leveling up the character, keep leveling up the abilities, and find stuff that you may not have got the first or even second playthrough. So definitely there's that. Those are things to keep in mind. The story, I think the biggest thing that was lacking with this game was the story. I mean, when you played the first one had a lot of surprises. Whereas the second one, not so much. There wasn't a lot of surprises in the game. It was kind of straightforward. I mean, it was impactful, and it did have an importance, but it just wasn't like the first one, and is necessarily not all sequels are. That's just, but that doesn't take away from the game. It doesn't mean that it's not good. It's a worthy sequel. It's a fun sequel. It's just, some people would say 2 is better than 1, and I can see how that could be seen that way. I just felt one to me was just overall was just a better game. But then also was the first. It had so much things going on in it where I was just like, I got enough. I enjoyed it. The combat was more refined. It was more aggressive. And it was more ambitious, definitely. There were a couple parts in this game that I was getting my ass kicked. Definitely. So it was a little bit more challenging. Not too challenging like the first one. Because the first one you're finding everything out on your own and stuff. But it definitely had its moments. So that was cool. Who would I say this game is for? If you like tight combat, you like scaling, and you like mechanical progression. There's not a lot of narrative, especially there was a lot less narrative in this one than there was in the first one. That was one thing I noticed. But again, that doesn't take away from the original. Definitely. And also, I felt that the game didn't spend a lot of time focusing on what happened in the first one. It moved the story forward. It didn't go back and talk too much about it didn't have to retread and say, well, this is what happened and this is what happened and this is what happened. Like, you should already know what happened. You played the original. We're done. So, if you want to relive what happened in the first game, then go back and play the first game. That's the other thing I would say. So for my rating for the game, I would give it based on all the scoring I gave it can give it a 8.9 yes sirs out of 10. For the most part, I just felt the story could have been, and I don't think the story was bad. I just felt like it was a step down from the first game. And then the performance, there were some performance issues. And the replay is cool, but it's not like, the replay isn't as as great as the first one. I think this game just kind of felt like, I think one felt like they took a lot more time making it, and two, they had the prototype, and two, they just added more things, but not as much as what could have been in one. So it was some it's like the middle child, because God of War 3. So, and I'm pretty sure 3, when I get to it, it'll be better than 2, because they'll be like, okay, what did we do wrong with 2 as opposed to what we did right with 2, and then they, make sure 3 doesn't suffer from that terminology they use for sequelitis or sequel games. Like, how do we make the third game better than the second? It's always one thing I notice, like, why I tend to like third films and third games more so than the second game, because I always feel like, and it's not always the case, but I feel like the second game, there's always a situation where they do something they probably shouldn't have done. But nonetheless, it's a great game. If you played 1, you'll love 2. It's just a question of you're gonna love it more than 1, or you're gonna like it. You're still gonna hold 1 in a higher regard. With that being said, I will catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.